Jake King. How are you? Oh, nice jacket.
Thank you. I got it when I was in New York for $5.
Good morning, gut buckets.
From around the world to your backyard.
ZUZU Radio.
I don't know what I'm doing, Jake. I don't know what we'll use and what we won't, but I thought that it would be important to try this in a safe space where I could like mess it up really bad and then decide what worked and what didn't.
Okay.
And so I'm really glad you're here to be my first guest, my guest host, my host guest.
Cool.
Okay, so the floor is yours.
Do you have like a theme for this? Is it steak and cake related?
Yes, that's a great opening question because the title is under a different umbrella now. It's called ZUZU. And to me, ZUZU is the part of my work that lifts up other artists. So Steak and Cake is about being creative and like just putting everything I have into making a lot and sharing it. Head Shrinker Studios is like all of my video stuff, commercials, music videos, short films. And then ZUZU is going to be how can I support artists in Western New York by helping them gain a wider reach. And so the main thesis of the podcast is tell me about an idea you had from the moment you had it to the moment you completed it and what the process was to get through. That's why I kind of think we could go through our album a little bit and dissect it.
Yeah, that's great. Do you feel like that kind of service of lifting other artists up in this specific way that you have in mind, is it something that you've seen around before and it's been fleeting or gone? Or is it something that you want to like provide newly to Buffalo or whatever you want?
I think there's no shortage of podcasts out there. I'll tell you that. I was talking to a friend, and I won't name her name because I know she's self-conscious, but I said I was doing this podcast, and she said, don't do it. And I was like, why? And she was like, well, it's just really saturated. And if your goal is to try and like get sponsorships and make it like a thing that generates some sort of level of income, it's really hard to crack the market in podcasts, especially music, which is like a really common theme to podcasts, And she showed me a couple that are active right now, and I listened to them, and I was like, okay, I see her point. Because to some degree, what I'm trying to do is twofold. It's about the struggle to make a living as an artist. I want to help other artists thrive, and I would also like to find compensation for my own art through these conversations by having sponsors, So it's so hard to make a living at this, and what like we were talking about, it's more you get paid in time than money. And so how can I bring together these two elements and have them work in a way that is like true to what I've been doing so far?
Sure. I think there is a level of acceptance in, like, I've listened to a lot of Mark Maron's podcasts.
Me too.
Over the years, and there's like a way he just dives into reading ads that you can tell he's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he's like, I don't know. I don't think Mark Maron is like a salesman. I think he's a guy who wants to talk about life, maybe.
Yeah, he's a conversationalist. He's so brilliant at getting into like the heart of a person. Sometimes someone he's only met just then. And I find that really amazing. I don't know if I'll be able to really achieve that level of like intimacy that he gets, but that's why I like the idea of talking about process because it's partially removed from like the personal aspect. It's more of like the what am I projecting as an artist and how am I doing it? So I think I really hope that people see it as inspiring. That's part of the main reason I want to focus on process, is because a lot of people trust me to guide them through this process in recording, and they'll come in with no idea of what we're going to do and just sort of give themselves over to the opportunity. And I'm really thankful for that, but I think it's really good to know that there's like a lot of different ways to make this sausage. And so I want to learn
sausage.
too. Yeah, the best kind. And so I really hope it's educational and inspiring too. I think that's the key.
Yeah, I think that spirit just follows you, definitely. Like when I think about you, I think about, just support and like pro art, pro do it yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
DIY spirit is alive.
For sure.
We just had that Sugar City screening last night, and we were talking about how it's sad but true that there aren't as many community-focused organizations active in supporting artists right now. And it could just be a little pandemic hangover, maybe. It's still sort of righting that ship, but
yeah,
I remember how important Sugar City was for artists to feel safe expressing ideas maybe they hadn't thought all the way through yet, and they could go there and do it and know they wouldn't be judged, and that the people that go to those spaces are there for the art. They're not there to get wasted or whatever, And so
that space I feel like represented something different. Like that was the first show I think I ever played. Was at Sugar City. And it was my bandmate Aaron, I think we were 16, and he just sent them an email. It was like, how do you do shows? And they were like, oh, like, it's this much money for the night, and like the space is yours. Do whatever you want. And I think that is the best version of, I think I want to play in a band, or I think I want to be creative and it be a public thing for people to go see or interact with.
Yeah.
And it was just like a really cool space too. Like there's zines on the wall, the lights are crazy.
Yeah.
I miss that kind of like, I don't know if you'd call it like iconography, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah. Somebody said that Sugar City had its game so figured out that it would elevate any artist that played there. And, like full sound, full snack bar, like great space, elevated stage, like all the elements are there, except you don't need to, there's not like this gatekeeping going on, you don't have to ask a punk, you don't have to like know the promoter, you just email. Like, how do I do shows? And they're like, we'll tell you,
Yeah.
And I love that. And I feel like, I hope that these conversations are similar, where it's like, how do I make a song, or how do I free improvise, or how do I, just musical concepts that maybe when you're starting out, you're looking for like a guide, and maybe this could be that.
Do you believe that the skills to become what you become are within already and need to be unlocked somehow, or do you have to find them through experiencing something else? Maybe those are the same things, but that idea, talk about it.
Yeah. I love the idea, and it does feel, at the very least, parallel, right? Like there's got to be something in you that is looking, like a seeking kind of mentality, And then there's what are your life circumstances, and what do you come into contact with, And I think it could have just as easily been true for me that if I didn't find music, I would have found writing, or I would have found like painting, like
cool.
Those things feel not that far off from what I'm doing when I really get to like the core of it. And so the other part of this is I'm trying in a lot of ways to be like the thing that activates that in people, like, oh, do you have like a sort of loose interest? Okay, let me show you what this is all about. And then if you hook onto it, great, I just think back a lot to when I was growing up and how I had this great opportunity to see shows and play shows when I was in like a freshman in high school, because there were so many bands that they basically collectivized and started renting out a YWCA rec room, and so that opportunity to book and play showed me what the community was like, and that it really, like, it was an identity that fit so well for me. I was like, this is what I want to do. I feel like getting that as early as possible is key. If I'm 40 and I go to a show and I'm like, oh, I kind of want to play. It seems like there's so many more barriers in the way. So I have historically focused on fostering like young musicians. But I think that as time's gone on, I realize it's really good to try and provide that opportunity wherever I can. So whether it be these conversations or I'm doing a songwriting class at Crane Library, which is like a free thing. The work I do at BCAT obviously is like really inspired by that idea. So yeah, I think it's inside you, and then it becomes unlocked by the randomness of whatever you see or do. You know? Do you think that's true?
Yeah. It is like interesting to think about age, I guess, where it's like, is it wasted time to not have unlocked that, or is it still something you can achieve? I'm just thinking about didn't you do like a Battle of the Bands, but it was like you have to be a certain age or something, like it was like
21 and under was the cutoff, but yeah, another
That's cool.
Sugar City thing. Yeah, it was really interesting to see who's young and attempting this, because a lot of times, like I said, there are gatekeepers where you don't see these bands in the beginning. You see them after they've like established, you know?
Yeah.
And so
They're all brittle.
right?
Hard edges.
But there's something about what you're saying is, as far as finding it early. I don't know if it's necessary. I think that there's personally, spiritually, just a belief that it happens exactly the way it should, you know?
Yeah.
And so I'm 15 years old. I go to Lackawanna and see Get Up Kids at this like super weird little place, and leave saying like, I need to make a band. Like I need to do what I just saw, you know? And I think that was kind of random getting to that show, but my whole life is affected by it now, you know? And so I just kind of have a belief in that it'll work.
Pulling the threads, you know? Just letting it unlock itself.
Yeah. And speaking of unlocking a mystery, let's talk about that weird thing that we made together.
Yeah, that was great.
So, like I said before, we talked a little and I kind of didn't tell you much. I just said bring instruments, right?
Yes.
And
We've worked on stuff before together that was a little more like structured.
Right.
I had songs beforehand that I like pretty much played on guitar and sang, and then that you made a shell around that, sort of. But this time that we're talking about, it was a little more just like aimless and like, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
No plan.
It's called Blindfold, right? I think.
Blindfold.
Yeah. That feels so true because we really weren't aiming for a target. We were just like throwing all the darts, you know?
Yeah.
The reason I feel that works so well is because as songwriters, we have habits that we lean on, or just preferences, like, oh, I like these chords, you know, and I know I like them. And if you don't ever create sort of a scenario where you're forced to be without the things that you leaned on, it's hard to grow. And it's hard to have ideas that feel like truly novel, you know? And if we go back, if we just spew it all out and then go back and grab stuff, I feel like there's so much magic that happens by accident that you wouldn't have intentionally done. I feel like that's what that album was kind of all about, right?
It feels like, it sounds like stream of consciousness.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah, like chaos wrestled into like form, kind of a little bit.
Yeah, maybe like I think about like creative work sometimes feels like you're using the parts you have, like Legos or something, and you're building. But stream of consciousness, using that as a tool, it feels sometimes more like you're chiseling away at all things, you know?
Yeah.
And so you have this object that you could have never imagined. You're just like whacking at it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
it feels different from, stuff I like my own work or anything like that. Because I'm usually going at it from like a songwriting or just writing point of view.
Is guitar the thing that you start with when you say, I'm going to write a new song? Guitar comes up first, usually?
It's been different over the last couple years. Definitely, probably mostly, it starts with guitar and then like melody, and then what kind of ideas of words would be good over this.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I've done the other thing too, like jotting down words first and then seeing if there's a like melody that feels natural out of those words pronunciation wise.
Yeah. The sequence in which you do the writing heavily affects the outcome of the writing, right? Like, have you ever sat down and wrote a song based entirely on a rhythm?
Oh, I don't know. I think maybe, but I've never thought about that.
Because that's the strange
Yeah.
backwards. That usually comes like after the song is like in egg form, you know?
Yeah.
But I find that if I do rhythm first, all of the decisions I make later are easier because I don't need to figure out a rhythm that works. I'm playing to this thing I like already, you know? So, but that's also part of why this is such a unique situation, because when we made the album, we weren't thinking how we're going to play these someday.
Yeah.
And it's part of like the special, like the way the label is that there's no pressure on any project to get to the stage.
Yeah.
I think in some ways I used to worry that it devalued the product. Like, oh, people just see this as like a project label. It's not like a legitimate bands, you know? But over time, that's the thing that I'm like most proud of. It's like it doesn't have to ever go into that next step, which is such a hard step, right? Like taking something from the ideation phase into like the now we've got to play it right phase is really hard work and not as fun.
Yeah, I think maybe there's like an assumed pressure on people starting out making music that the goal is that you have to play things exactly always.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of good examples of kind of being free of that and disconnecting like live performance from recorded performance.
When you are on stage and you're playing these songs that you know really well and a solo comes up, do you approach the solo with a complete new mentality each time, or are you like kind of fitting into this territory that you already know you want to be in?
I think it's a back and forthness of that. I don't write guitar solos for the most part, like for myself to play, even in recording. Like if I've recorded a guitar solo, it's usually like one of the takes of improv.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't think I can remember guitar solos.
Right.
So there is like, I can think about the vibe of the song. Like, is this a like sweet sounding, like sugary type of thing, or is this like brittle and hard and edgy?
Yeah.
And so, but I don't know. Those aren't complete barriers. Like, that's not to say I wouldn't try it out. Try out like the opposite. I don't know.
It's interesting to think about how you're translating like brittle in your mind into music. You know, like you're taking a feeling and sending the feeling to your brain, and your brain is sending signals to your fingers.
Yeah.
And somehow you're like articulating a feeling that way. That's amazing.
This is random, but I was just listening to Electric Ladyland, and there's a song on there. It's like Rainy Day, something about Rainy Day, Dream Away or something.
Oh, okay.
And it opens with this guitar solo, and Jimmy has the wah, and it straight up sounds like talking. It's like, and it's like, how, like, what is that?
Yeah. Where
Like,
does
why
that
is
come
that
from?
in the world now. You know?
Talk about, just a pioneer of ideas.
Yeah.
I love listening to people talk about working with Hendrix and how he would truly hear sounds in his mind and then go into the studio and tell the engineer, like, this is what I have in mind. We got to figure this out, how to get to this sound.
I like to think about guitar soloing a lot of the times as like you have this brush and you're painting. It's almost like impressions, like impressionism. Like you're not representing something exactly. It's because you think about like a blurry painting and it looks like trippy and whatever. But you're kind of like loosely suggesting the shape of it.
Yeah.
You know? And so I feel like Hendrix is a great example of an artist who's just like, he's just singing like stream of consciousness maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. He seemed to really give himself over to literally, no pun intended, but the experience of expressing on an instrument. Yeah.
And there's so much like vulnerability in that, like, because you could have that philosophy and it might not be as good as Jimi Hendrix. You know, like you could go for it and you're not Jimi Hendrix, you know?
Yeah.
But he must have had something that just pushed him to the point where he was comfortable in that kind of vulnerability to do that.
I kind of wonder if it's studying your craft, you know? Like, a lot of times they say you need to learn the rules before you break them, and I generally agree with that because the more you know about how it has been, the more you can dream about how it could be, you know? And he was just like such a great dreamer, and I'm glad you bring him up because he's definitely an inspiration. I want to try and find sounds that don't exist, or I want to like put things that don't go together and see if they work, you know? I think about a lot of how I got stuck for like 9 months. I was only making songs with sounds in the house. I could go in the kitchen and record like the coffee grinder and like the tea kettle like opening and closing, and I make drum sets out of it, and it was really exciting to take the world around me and like make it into an instrument. And I feel like I'm always looking for that kind of idea. Like how can I incorporate something that doesn't feel right and make it feel right?
Totally.
Well, I think we've come to the end of our first episode.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're going to keep these real quick. That's another thing. I was
Cool.
going to try and just do half-hour conversations for the guest and for the listener to just check in, check out, go on with your day. Obviously, we're not going to go on with our day. We're going to make some music after this.
Oh, yeah. That's true.
But no, I really appreciate you sitting down and talking, and we'll see what we got in the end.
Yeah, this was great. Best of luck.
Thank you.